How do you make a 30-man battle royal absolute shit? You give it 18 minutes and you just have everybody come out in 30-second intervals. Vince Russo, everybody. I'm Joe Rethlin with a retro review of WCW Thunder from October 18, 2000. We're about 11 days away from Halloween Havoc, and my god, this show was absolute shit. And I thought Thunder was shit before, but fucking Christ, I mean, a 30-man battle royal and you don't give it the last 40 minutes. You don't tell some good stories. You just rush everybody out there. Some people, they had already worked twice because they apparently didn't have a very good crew in Melbourne, Australia. They're in the same goddamn venue and still had a decent crowd, and nobody threw trash at the ring like they did on the previous Nitro. But yeah, we get footage of Sam Greco, you know, that kickboxing guy that apparently is popular in Australia and only about 25% of the people reacted to him. I'm not saying the guy isn't a legit athlete, but I don't really recall the crowd reaction being very big. He did get the Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi chant going, but yeah, he's going to have an interview tonight. And they talk about big things to expect from him in WCW, and I don't recall much of anything that he did because WCW was practically dead 5 months later. So, we get Sanders talking about how he will face Miller in a 3-round kickboxing match at Halloween Havoc. By the way, Ernest Miller is a 3-time world karate champion. Mike Sanders is Mike Sanders and is not good at anything. He's definitely not good at being above average, or really even being average. He's below average. He's barely goddamn pond scum level. That's really mean to Mike Sanders, but he was just thrown out there with no direction, and he was just a guy just to get beat up. He's kind of like Just Joe if Just Joe got more TV time. And if you remember Just Joe, that's a deep cut for wrestling fans in 2000. So he is taking on Ray, and Tigress is also there in a neck brace because Jeff Jarrett had recently hit her with a guitar. Because women in 2000, they got treated the best, except they totally fucking didn't. And then Miller is here. Hey, I'm going to make this a non-disqualification match. It's a no disqualification match, but whatever. He can't make Sanders put the Cruiserweight title on the line despite the fact that they're doing this power struggle as to who the commissioner will be. The match was okay. It wasn't bad. I mean, Sanders isn't really all that good, and Ray was doing all the work in leopard print pants for some reason, and he got to roll up the devastating roll-up 1, 2, 3. And Shivani, everybody's killing time, hyping up the Countdown to Armageddon Battle Royal. 30 men, the winning guy gets a shot at whoever the champion is the following night after Halloween Havoc, on the following Nitro, basically. And Shivani says, hopefully this is the beginning of many tours for WCW in Australia. Hate to say it, but it was, I believe, the last one. I don't think they went back because I don't think they were allowed to because Time Warner merger, and then everything just went all fucking south. And then Sid's leg went west and east. Ouch, his fucking leg just broke. I still got to review that show, and I'm not looking forward to it in a couple months. So we get, Countdown to Armageddon Battle Royal hype. And then it gets even worse because we get Big Vito and Shane Douglas. Shane was washed up at this point, could not fucking do anything. We get an elbow for 2. Tori interferes. We get the chain punch for 2. Then we get the franchiser for 3. Tori doing her best impression of, a useless twat at ringside. And it's not that Tori was the worst thing in wrestling. She actually could do some stuff and wanted to do more. But as far as an on-screen character, they just made her, window dressing here. All she did was just do badly timed interference spots because they gave nobody any goddamn direction, so everybody just looked like a goddamn idiot. Or in Shane Douglas's case, every day that he wakes up. And then Goldberg's looking for Chronic, and he punches out Ron Harris. And then we get Awesome and Crowbar wanting to tag team Pamela. Yep, this was actually something that they basically implied. And then we get the Boogie Nights versus the Harris Brothers. Well, just Dawn. Why were either of these teams a thing? The Nazi Harris Brothers and then Boogie Nights. We did not need to see a bald Alex Wright. We did not need to see Alex Wright again, as good as he could be. And then Disco Inferno. We didn't need to see Disco Inferno at all. Well, hey, Ron shows up at one point. The Duck gets beaten up and tossed into the crowd. An exact quote, Stevie Ray, the fans are fighting over the Duck. Shivani, they're fighting over the Duck. God bless them. That's an encapsulation of WCW at this point. That encompassed everything that was wrong with WCW. They were cheering for a beaten up plastic duck. And commentary at that point was just like, fuck it, we're just going to... I have such an appreciation for Tony Schiavone now and all the bullshit he had to go through in 2000. Like dealing with Mark Madden and all the bullshit booking. But yeah, Disco hit one of the Harris... I think it was Ron. I think he hit Ron with something. And then a top rope clothesline pins him 1, 2, 3. And then Team Canada argues about the Battle Royal. No, I'm gonna win. And then Major Guns won it. That would have been very interesting, considering she couldn't really do anything, but her winning would have made just as much sense as about anything else. Then Elite Skipper versus Goldberg. Skipper is cutting a promo, by the way, and facing the camera kind of like I am. And then suddenly Goldberg shows up and is just standing back there. Now, Goldberg isn't exactly a small guy, and Skipper doesn't strike me as an idiot. He strikes me as a guy that was born with a helium tank in his throat, but he doesn't strike me as an idiot, and he proceeds to just pretend that he doesn't see Goldberg. Goldberg, who is about as big as a goddamn mountain at this point, is just standing there, and then Skipper's like, oh, I'm not scared of Goldberg, I'm not scared of this kind of stuff. And then Goldberg's music hits. Skipper knows he's there and has to act like he doesn't see him, and then suddenly he backs up into him. Oh no, Goldberg's here. How the hell did this guy that always stands out in the crowd and can't sneak up on anybody, how did he get behind me? How did I not see him? Well, Skipper, you were made to look like an idiot. And then he got the shit beat out of him. It went on for like a minute plus, and then he got a spear and jackhammer 1, 2, 3. Goldberg's up to 11-0, I guess. I refuse to care. And then Jarrett and Steiner versus Kidman and Konnan with Tigress. At one point, Tori comes down and drags Tigress away. It figures Tori Wilson, with her, a bit of, bad views, should we say, would relish taking the Hispanic woman away and treating her like dirt. So then we get a recliner to Kidman for the win. Cool. All right, good. This is exactly how you push new talent. I'm not saying Kidman could ever been a world champion. That feud with Hogan certainly didn't do him any favors, but Scott Steiner at this point was better for his promos and yelling at the fans than he was in the ring. He was so goddamn massive and so injury prone because he was so massive that he couldn't really do anything anymore. I mean, he could do a few moves, and he had the physical charisma and the fact that he was the size of a goddamn station wagon, but he couldn't do anything. He was so fucking hurt. And then Shivani interviews Sam Greco, talked about being a kickboxer, the stars of WCW, and he's part of WCW, and I don't know what he fucking did. I have no idea. Jindrak and Ohara versus Booker and Sting in a tag title match. And yes, this is actually something that happened. They took the world champion and one of their biggest stars, Sting, said, hey, go after the tag titles. 2 minutes later, we get interference. Sanders, knocks down the ref and then calls for a DQ because he's the commissioner. And then he gets a shit beaten out of him, and nobody cared about any of this stuff. And then Booker and Sting celebrate like they won the goddamn Super Bowl. And then Chronic versus The Perfect Event. High Time pins Palumbo in like a minute. And by the way, all these guys are involved in the the Armageddon Battle Royal a little bit later. Goldberg is in here, gets laid out by High Time, and is up 30 seconds later and lays out Perfect Event. And then Mark Madden, because we need more Mark Madden on TV apparently. Thank God he's out of the company in about 2.5 months of programming at least. Never should have been in wrestling at all. Fucking undeserving, useless twat. And interviews Ric Flair, and then Ric Flair's talking about being in Australia, woo, all that, and then here's David, because reasons, also to hype up the fact he's facing Buff Bagwell in a DNA match. Yes, a DNA match, where apparently you need to draw blood from your opponent to win. It's actually a first blood match, but they wanted to be all fancy and everything. Flair's like, forget about Buff, what the fuck you doing, what the hell's going on, come with me. David then yells at Rick, and then tries to take blood from Madden, which is stupid because Madden doesn't have a heart. His mother should have practiced safe termination is my point, but he doesn't even have a heart. So how the hell are you going to get blood from somebody that doesn't have a goddamn heart? So, we get 30-second intervals for this 30-man, Armageddon Battle Royal Gauntlet Bound for Glory battle. No, I'm kidding. It's an Armageddon Battle Royal. This got 18 minutes, the last 18 minutes. That was still, and that started with the intros for Sanders and Miller. So they were the first two to start. And then every 30 seconds, we would have people come out. And then I think they were even rushing some of the 30-second thing. Instead of maybe taking a couple of these matches off and everything, taking Skipper and Goldberg off, or taking, Vito and Shane, just taking a few people off, and just making them work once and giving 30 minutes to the Battle Royal. No, they decided to do 1 or 2 cool spots, but they rushed all the shit. So you get Sanders and Miller, they start out, then Stasiak comes in, then Palumbo comes in. You get the 30-man all-human centipede together at one point. You get Disco, then Alex Wright, then Crowbar, then Ron Harris, then Don Harris. The Nazi Harris brothers appear again. Jim Duggan, who should have not been wrestling at this point after his health scare, and great for him overcoming cancer, but he should have not been wrestling. And then we get Chavo, and then Nash, and then we get a commercial break. Nobody gets eliminated during the commercial break that I'm aware of. Nash just eliminates people like crazy. Gets down to where he's the only person there, kind of, calling back to his 1994 Royal Rumble spot, which actually was a pretty cool moment and got him over with people. because you played to his strengths. The fact that he couldn't really wrestle and he could do some big man shit. And even Nash would admit that he could never wrestle. And then we get David Flair. David Flair, who, by the way, who's absolutely fine after being destroyed by Goldberg a couple days before and trying to draw blood out of the heartless Mark Madden. He's just there, and then he gets eliminated. And then Lashley Rue's here. He gets tossed out. Queen Bee gets tossed out. Then we get Ray in there. And then Ray manages to survive long enough so Booker gets in there. And then Mike Awesome and then Sting. And then Nash gets ganged up on and eliminated. We then get Jarrett and Steiner running in at the same time because they're like, shit, we have no more time. We got to send everybody out there. And then Sting, Jarrett, and Booker are gone. Kidman gets in. Lance gets in. Big Vito, O'Hare, Jindrak, Conan, Chronic are one entrant. Chronic's one entrant. So I guess that's 30. I looked over my notes. I think it was 29. It could have been 30. I don't really know. It doesn't really fucking matter. And Goldberg, by the way, can't compete for the title until he, replicates or passes that streak that he had, which was actually 173-0, but they made 176-0 for some reason. So I'm guessing that what happened is he beat 3 people before Starrcade 98 went on the air, and they forgot to tell everybody before Nash beat him. That looks like a stun gun. Should we zap him with a taser? Good idea. No, it's not a good idea. It was horrible and it was garbage. When something gets hot in this industry, you run with it. You don't zap it with a taser. Goldberg comes in, not as an entrant, attacks everybody, stares down Mike Awesome. Hey, maybe I'll beat the shit out of him. Nope, I helped clothesline. I think Adam's over. And that's it. Or it's Brian Clark. It's one of the two. And Mike Awesome wins the shot at the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. And then would face Vampiro at Halloween Havoc 2000, and unfortunately Vampiro would suffer a broken neck. By the way, forgot to do this. I'm going to keep doing this with the notes because it's exactly what it fucking deserves. This promotion was an absolute dumpster fire at this point. Now, eventually when Russo would get gone, they would get a little bit better creative, but by then the damage was beyond done. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.